Chairman Strobel and members of the committee. I'm Dan Lennington. I'm Deputy Counsel at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, where I direct the nationwide Equality Under the Law project, which brings lawsuits and policy reforms to make all of our laws colorblind and promote equality for all. Today I'm pleased to support Assembly Joint Resolution 109 and Senate Joint Resolution 111. If approved by the legislature, this constitutional amendment would explicitly prohibit any form of race discrimination in public employment, education, contracting, and administration. In practice, this amendment would ban government-sponsored affirmative action, racial quotas and preferences, and DEI policies that use race discrimination. The U.S. Constitution and the Wisconsin Constitution are built on a foundation of racial equality. No one should be granted a preference or denied a benefit based on race. All laws must be colorblind to ensure the American dream for all. Otherwise, America will devolve into a racialized society with some racial groups punishing other racial groups based on perceived historical grievances. That's not the American dream. That's a nightmare of violence, poverty, and oppression. Despite the clear and unequivocal mandate of legal equality already in our constitutions, race-based programs, quotas, preferences still persist both at the state and the local level in Wisconsin. These programs hurt Wisconsin individuals and small business owners every single day. Rooting out this race discrimination will take a lot of work, but this constitutional amendment will go a long way to advance the cause of equality. In August of this year, last year, we released a report called the Equality for All Agenda. It identified about 20 specific state laws and another 20 agency programs that discriminate based on race. These laws and programs include grants, scholarships, loans, health care benefits, drug treatment programs, busing, housing, and employment opportunities. Today I want to highlight just a couple of these state laws. Every year, the state of Wisconsin contracts with thousands of businesses to supply goods and services, from roads and bridges to paper clips and staples. In the most recent fiscal year reported, 2022, the DOA reported that the state spent over $3.4 billion on contractors. So every year, $3.4 billion are going to contractors. This entire procurement system is infected with race discrimination. At least 11 separate state laws impose racial quotas or preferences on how this money is spent. According to these laws, a certain percentage of spending must be set aside for businesses owned by minorities, and businesses owned by minorities are granted a 5% price preference, meaning you don't even have to be the lowest bidder. You get a 5% bump on your bid for government contracting if you're minority owned. According to DOA, in fiscal year 2022, Wisconsin paid over $200 million to so-called diverse suppliers under this program. Several agencies actually spent over 25% of their entire contracting budget with diverse suppliers. DWD, for example, spends 58% of their contracting budget on diverse suppliers. This is all in a DOA report, which is going to be updated at the end of this month. Another example, the universities of Wisconsin continue to discriminate against students and employees based on race. Despite recent public promises to end discrimination, UW continues to offer race-based services, housing, awards, scholarships. These exclude many students, including whites, Asians, students from the Middle East, and other places because of their race. We recently called on UW to abandon these discriminatory programs. While these programs are aimed at helping minorities, even those who broadly support race-based policies in Wisconsin are shocked to learn that in Wisconsin, the term minority does not actually include all racial minorities. Wisconsin broadly excludes most Asians from minority-only programs, as well as individuals from North Africa and the Middle East. Some Latinos are also excluded from Wisconsin programs because they are not technically, quote, Hispanics, which is the term used by our state laws and state agencies. In other words, even if you are in favor of racial preferences, you should be embarrassed by our state's crude treatment of many minority groups. Racial line drawing is a messy business and demeans the dignity of everyone. Government-sponsored race discrimination is not limited to state law. At will, we hear frequently from individuals who have experienced race discrimination at the local level. The city of Milwaukee, for example, uses racial preferences in contracting and hiring, and many school districts embrace DEI, implement discipline, grading, curriculum based on race. We just heard this morning from a school district where a lot of teachers just quit because they were ordered to change discipline policies based on race. The tide is clearly turning away from towards race neutrality and away from race-based programs. 25 states have now approved or introduced bills prohibiting DEI, and 9 states explicitly ban affirmative action through constitutional amendment or statewide referendum just like this. Senator Noss stole my thunder about the recent Marquette poll, but it is 75% of Americans oppose affirmative action, including 58% of Democrats and 53% of African Americans. I think the Republican number was somewhere about 93% of Republicans, which I think would track pretty close to the electorate in Wisconsin. We strongly support this proposed amendment to make explicit what we already know: all Americans deserve equal treatment by the government. One question I can answer right away is that, yes, federal civil rights laws do prohibit this behavior, but it's still going on, and it persists. And we hear from government attorneys at the UW, at DOA, at agencies all throughout the state, government attorneys, DOJ, they're saying that decision from last summer, it just applies to admissions. It doesn't apply to anything else. Just keep doing what you're doing. The way to root out this discrimination is to make explicit in our Constitution and let the voters have an emphatic statement of equality that they can share as members of the public. Because right now, it's going to keep going on, and these programs are going to persist, and $200 million is going to go out the door, and small businesses in your districts are going to be shut out of work because they have the wrong skin color. And that's not the type of country I want to live in.
Thank you for your testimony. So you're saying that Supreme Court decision just related to admissions, so these things will continue to go on because of the narrow scope of that decision?
No, the decision was very broad. It interpreted federal constitutional law and it interpreted federal racial statutes, race discrimination statutes. It does apply to all of these things. It does apply everywhere. But the proponents of DEI and the proponents of equity and inclusion, and at UW they call it inclusive excellence, they are telling their employees, keep doing what you're doing, because that was only about admissions, which is wrong. They're not telling the truth. But we think that this amendment will make explicit what's already in our laws. And it's important for the voters to be able to, 75% of voters, to go out and say, I emphatically reject DEI, affirmative action, race-based discrimination.
Sure. I would agree with that. Is there, do you see through the courts this also being affirmed again in some way to deal with the issues that we're dealing with here that we think we can help on? Or how are the courts going to continue, if these laws are continue to be violated? Are you aware of cases that are moving forward at this point in time to deal with what appears to be ignoring this decision?
Yes. Last night we won a case against the Biden administration. The Biden administration created something called the Minority Business Development Agency, and last night about 7 o'clock, a federal court in Texas struck it down and declared it unconstitutional. We have to bring cases like this all over the place. We've brought in cases in Florida and Tennessee and Kentucky and Indiana. And in Wisconsin, we have a case against the state bar right now, which is pushing DEI on lawyers. UW, if they don't change their behavior, they're going to have to go to court and explain why they keep putting out these DEI statements, why they keep putting fellowships and scholarships up based on race, when their own comms people are telling WisPolitics, oh, we've ended it. On January 12th, they said, we've ended all that. They're still up on their website. Now, I don't know what's going on over there, but they're either going to have to figure it out quick, or they're going to have to tell a federal judge why they're discriminating based on race.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Senator
Oh,
Fine.
I'm sorry, Senator
Yes.
Fine?
So UW is obviously still doing the stuff they're interpreting it very narrowly.
Right.
So the recourse would be going to federal court, correct?
Right.
And you've done that in other areas, so is the inference that they're breaking the law right now by still doing what they're doing?
Absolutely. We sent them a letter this week telling them that they are breaking the law. We're going to send them another letter later
What's
this
going
week.
to make this change their mind?
Well, I'll tell you, the legislature and the people have a lot of power in this state.
I agree.
Drawing attention to this issue, having a public debate about this, having people go to the polls and change our Constitution to make explicit what we all know is true, is a really important thing. I can only sue so many people. I can only get so many judgments. Lucas and I.
No, I get that.
You know, but and we can get relief for plaintiffs in certain cases, and we can make certain scholarships race neutral and certain fellowships. But this takes care of all of it.
Okay.
It's an emphatic public statement and a rebuke of what they're doing.
I think it's appalling to pay someone 5% more just based on a demographic. So
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. If you're trying to run a small business, it's really hard if your competitor gets 5% every time. DOA runs that, and Evers administration running that right now. It's happening right today, buying pencils and microphones and tables.
Any other questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.